It gives me great pleasure today to be talking to Ian Cartwright Thompson as part of the Northern Voices programme at Messams Yorkshire. Ian is the managing director of the internationally acclaimed furniture company, Robert Thompson's Craftsman Limited, more often known simply as the Mouseman. The company is based in the small village of Kilburn in North Yorkshire, and it was founded over 100 years ago by Ian's great-grandfather, Robert Thompson. Ian, your great-grandfather was clearly a remarkable man. He started life working for his father as a village joiner, doing everyday repairs, mending broken fences and barns. And by the time he died in 1955, he had become a household name. His company recognized throughout the world for its handmade English oak furniture of the highest quality, with the little mouse carved in relief on each piece by way of a signature. Can you talk us through his extraordinary journey and give us an insight into what inspired him?
Well, I think you've got to start with great-great-grandfather, really, Julia, because he moved into Kilburn village in 1873 to become the village joiner.
Right.
And that was really the start of our family business.
Okay.
It wasn't until Robert took over running the business, it became what we know now as, Robert Thompson's Craftsman Limited and the Mouseman of Kilburn.
Right.
But, great-grandfather, when he took over the business, he had great aspirations to want to repeat the work that the sort of 15th century craftsman had done. And that was due to him being sent at 14 years of age on an apprenticeship to be an engineer, because his father John thought with the Industrial Revolution taking place, it was the best thing for Robert. It had the best future for him. So he was apprenticed to a company, the Garnet Wire Company over in Cleckheaton, West Yorkshire.
Right.
So it wasn't until his father John was taken ill that Robert actually came back into the fold and started working and helping out in the family business.
I see.
Yeah, so it's sort of an interesting way for Robert to start. It wasn't as though he left school and came straight into the family joinery business. It was his father who thought the best thing for him. I mean, he did know people over in the West Riding, and that's how he ended up over there. But I'm sure that was the start of it, because the journeys from Kilburn to Cleckheaton, he had to go through Ripon.
Right.
And changed buses in Ripon, and he had, probably a couple of hours to spend before he caught the next bus to go on to Cleckheaton.
Yes.
And then he would go into Ripon Cathedral and he would sketch the bench ends and the carvings that the medieval craftsmen had created. So that was really the starting point for him. And that's why you see this ecclesiastical look to a lot of our pieces of furniture that we still produce today.
Yes.
I mean, even the items that we make today were designed, the original ones were designed by great-grandfather, Robert.
Right.
So, and we're just I suppose, a continuation. We're just the keepers of our family business. I mean, we received it and we want to hand it over in better condition to the next generation.
Yes. So he was really, he had a sort of epiphany moment when he was in Ripon Cathedral drawing, and that's when he sort of saw what he really wanted to do. He understood that actually reviving the medieval tradition of wood carving was his calling. I
think because he'd had a look at the Industrial Revolution and didn't like what he saw. Right. It was involved with the sort of cotton industry, because Wynett Gar Company used to make machines for stripping the flax out of the wool. So he would have known all about the conditions in the cotton mills and everything else.
Yes.
And all he wanted to do was to get back to Kilburn and start creating what he'd seen in Ripon Cathedral.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so that was a real inspiration for him, those trips. I mean, maybe if he hadn't been apprenticed as an engineer in Cleckheaton,
he would never have
might not have been what we are today. Who knows?
That's such a good story, isn't it? And in fact, his father's wish to connect him to the high-tech of the day actually had the reverse effect of driving him back to looking
exactly. Shows you where his heart was.
Non-mechanical means of production.
He just wanted to get back to hearts of oak and creating things that were going to last for hundreds of years. I mean, originally when he was producing furniture, you know, he said he would unconditionally guarantee it for 100 years, but then he changed that and said, no, it's going to last indefinitely. As long as people look after it, it'll be there in centuries to come.
Yes.
And how right. I mean, some of those early pieces now are over 100 years old. So.
And they look superb.
Yeah, and they look actually better than new pieces, I have to say. You know, the older pieces, you know, because the work that's gone into it. Because you've got to think back in the 1900s, 1920s, labour costs were very low. It was the cost of the material and actually extracting timber from woodlands and converting it into plank. Because this was before mechanisation of machinery for sawing the logs up. Those were all cut by hand in those early days in a pit, you know, or over a pit. So they would have one apprentice down in the bottom with a wide-brimmed hat, so the sawdust didn't go in his face. And, you know, the senior craftsman would be stood on top, you know, with a pit saw, sawing them into planks of oak. And that's how, you know, life was for him in those early days. He had a couple of what were farm hands that he'd taken on and started to train after his father had died. I mean, he did have his brother William, but his brother William wasn't interested in woodwork. All he wanted to do was be a farmer.
Right.
So, you know, you can't take that out of somebody. So he went off farming when Robert started expanding the business.
So did Robert, in a way, teach himself through observing and drawing, or did he go off?
No, he never
was self-taught in a sense.
He was totally self-taught, apart from what he picked up from his father.
Yeah.
But he always said his father was very crude because he was a joiner and not a cabinet maker.
Right, yes, because he became a true cabinet maker.
Exactly.
And you know, and you have drawings that he made in Ripon Cathedral, do you?
Because I have drawings that date back to when great-grandfather first started.
Right.
We have over 10,000 drawings in our sort of filing system that I still use today for inspiration for new jobs. And the books that he collected, I mean, I still have those books and I still use the books for inspiration. All his notes are written on the pages by the side with reference to where he was going to use it and what he was going to do with it.
Yes.
And then he would, you know, mix it into a piece of furniture. So it would become part of the recipe and part of the design, of course.
Yes.
So all of those the thinking behind it was he just wanted to recreate what was getting lost because of this industrial revolution that was taking place. Yes, and don't forget, we had the arts and crafts movement happening at the same time.
So he was really in tune with that, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, people like William Morris and all those other, you know, people that were very inspirational with the arts and crafts movement. He would have been looking up to them.
Yes.
And the Cotswold movement, you know, that was all part of the scene that was going on.
Absolutely.
Don't forget, there was no television, so it wasn't, you know, all he was working on was his work. You know, producing drawings for ecclesiastical jobs. And of course, that then led in to the domestic pieces because of, you know, a lot of those early pieces. Well, the first real change of direction for him was a meeting with Father Paul Neville from Ampleforth. Yes. He was then the village priest of the church there in the village. And on his travels, he'd come across a corpus of Christ, sort of life-size, 5'6", this figure was. And he wanted a cross to mount it on in the churchyard in memory of all of those who'd been lost in the First World War.
Yes.
So he called great-grandfather to a meeting and said, you know, would he be interested in making this cross? And of course, great-grandfather said, yes, of course we will. He didn't have the timber, but
he saw this as an opportunity. He thought
exactly, yeah, because he was go-ahead, he was gung-ho, he wanted to get on in life. He had aspirations of creating something special And this was all in the back of his mind.
Sure.
And this was the first stepping stone, the first rung of the ladder for, you know, the movement to really jump forward. So he went out, he sourced a tree on one of the local estates. They went and cut it down by hand and brought it back to Kilburn and converted it into these massive great sections to put this corpus of Christ on. And of course, that started the relationship with Father Paul Neville, who was then at that time the village priest, but then went on to be the head at Ampleforth College. So an expanding college, what does it need? It needs refectory furniture, it needs a library, it needs to furnish all of the houses. Who does Father Paul Neville go to? His friend,
Robert Thompson, down the road. Yeah.
Exactly. So he's just down the road, 7 miles away.
Yeah.
So that created the, you know, the start of our business as we know it today, because on the back of that, he got various other commissions, one for the monks' quarters over at Workington. That was early doors. So that was another great commission because Ampleforth had a connection there. Then what about all the parents that came and saw the beautiful work that, you know, the Mouseman of Kilburn had created?
And 100 years on, it continues today. I mean, you've done recent work at Ampleforth, haven't you?
Yes, we have. We're still doing work today for Ampleforth College, and we also do work for a lot of the old boys and scholars from Ampleforth. So, you know, that's been a lifeline to our company over the years. Yes. It really has.
And the library is particularly splendid, isn't it? With those amazing chairs with the iron of St. Lawrence on the side.
Well, the thing is that great-grandfather used to call that his room.
That's right. It was my library or something. You know, he really...
Right, because he put so much into it. And I think that, you know, he was so proud. He used to take potential clients over to Ampleforth. It became his showroom.
Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. But in this series, we're talking about also the importance of roots and the importance of where people are born. And I guess that his Yorkshire identity was really important to him. Did he use Yorkshire trees in his?
He would initially, but then he would have to search farther afield because of the quantity of timber that he would have needed.
Right.
Between the war years, he was employing 40 men. So, you know, they're going to get through quite a bit of timber.
But driven and passionate and busy as he was, did your great-grandfather, I mean, he left Yorkshire. I guess he didn't have much time to leave Yorkshire. He must have spent most of his time.
The only time he left Yorkshire was when he went off to survey a site. You know, if it was a commission in the south, he would then maybe go off on a tour around the country and he would combine sort of 3 survey jobs at the same time. But, you know, it was very rare because he had so much work on board. Absolutely. You know, all the drawings he was doing. I mean, initially he was obviously working at the bench, but because he was so busy and employing 40 men, he had the business to run.
So he was both a very, very skilled craftsman, but he was also a businessman. I mean, he had both heads on him.
Well, I think the business side came from Ampleforth with the meetings that he had with Father Paul Neville. I think he pushed him down that route. He suggested books that he should read, and he even gave him, I've got books in the collection in the office from Father Paul Neville to Robert.
So in fact, his business advisor was the local priest, who then became the abbot of Ampleforth.
Well, yes, very much so.
If we were talking about, you know, what makes a Mouseman furniture recognizably a Mouseman furniture, that technique seems to be central to your practice.
Very much so. I mean, it's one of the oldest cabinet makers' tools invented. It was invented before the plane was invented, and that tool was used, and you will often see the effect on very old properties, almost like beaten copper on the surface of the timber.
So it's a ripple effect.
It's a rippled effect, and they use that for truing a round log and making it into a square beam because it was the quickest way. Don't forget, no planing machines or saws, so it was quicker to adze it all off by hand. I mean, if you go to the Arab countries, you'll still see them being used for building dhows on the beach, small hand adzes, because they come in different shapes and sizes.
Yes.
The one that we use for creating the finish is the carpenter's adze. And as I say, that was used for, screwing up beams that were in properties. The beams in York Minster would have originally been adzed by hand. And buildings in Westminster Abbey,
Yes.
they will have all had an adze surface. But what great grandfather saw, he saw it as a decorative finish that would make his distinctive style unique. I mean, there are various things. Obviously, the use of the English oak.
Yes.
There's the adzing, the lattice work that we use in the panels on the backs of the chairs.
Yes.
And of course, the mouse, the carved mouse.
So those are the three key features.
Very much so, and if something displays those three items, well, then it's definitely a Mouseman piece.
Yes.
And that's a good way of recognizing those early pieces that he produced. That came out of the workshop at Kilburn.
And in terms of number of people, the training that you give your apprentices in, can you talk us through how you train people and how long it takes? And I guess they're learning all through their careers with you, in fact, but the initial training.
I've been in the business 50 odd years and I still learn something every week.
Yes.
About my trade. So, and that's what keeps me interested in what I'm doing.
Yes.
But with the apprenticeship, and all the members of the family that are in the business have all had an apprenticeship in the workshop or been through an apprenticeship, because that's part of the deal. Nobody can come in from college or school and go straight in. They have to go onto the bench and learn how to make a piece of furniture, because you cannot tell anybody how to do it unless you can make it yourselves, and even down to the design side. But with our apprenticeship, it's a minimum of 4 years on a one-to-one basis. So all the training is done in-house. So when a student comes to us, we usually take them on a sort of 2 or 3 week trial period to see what their interest level is like, see if they have any skills or aptitude towards working with their hands.
Yes.
Because if they're interested to learn, we can teach them. And with the training, because our senior craftsmen, all of them have a slightly different way, even to carving the mice. Everybody carves a mouse slightly differently, different style.
Yes.
But with the training, it's a lifetime of learning, Julia. At the end of the day, you never stop learning. Yes. So, that's the challenge that we've got. And then we have to pass those skills on to the apprentice of today, which is the craftsman of tomorrow.
Yes, yes, indeed.
We're proud to be Yorkshire. Our hearts are in Yorkshire, our business in Yorkshire. A lot of our clients are in Yorkshire. But, we send furniture to people around the world, but most of them have a Yorkshire connection. If you're born in Yorkshire, you have a strong connection with Yorkshire.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's hope that people come to your visitor centre when it reopens and they can see your craftsmen using your tools. I know you do demonstrations, and that they'll be inspired to join your team and to think afresh about a career using their hands.
Well, I certainly hope so, because we have a viewing gallery into the workshop, so they can see what's happening on the shop floor. Absolutely. We have nothing to hide. We like people to see it. One of the best selling aspects for us is to take somebody who's interested in what we do and is interested in our products around the workshop, and 9 times out of 10, they will end up being one of our customers and clients, because they've seen what goes into everything. Absolutely. And that's the difference. It's not been chinged out. It's not plastic fantastic. These are items that are made with a pair of those. And the love that's gone into creating it, you can only see when you see it happening.
And isn't it true that you have one man who oversees the creation of a single piece, that they see it through from the beginning?
That's right. They see it from start to finish. And that's what's unique about what we do. It's not a production line. Everybody has their own workstation and they're assigned a job. And everybody can make everything, all of the standard items. We have over 130 standard items that we make. And everybody can make each one of those items. And that's what the training is all about. Making sure that all of those apprentices have chance to experience making each of those standard items, as well as the drawing jobs and the special pieces that we make for designers and clients around the globe.
Thank you, Ian. It's been a
You're
real
welcome.
pleasure and so interesting to talk to you today.
Jolly good. Thank you.